So much for everyone who has been waiting for me, and welcome to everyone who's joining in. Tonight, as the title shows, I'm going to be talking about the potential Iranian response when it comes to the attack that Israel had in Damascus, where they killed a senior figure in the IRGC Quds force on the consulate, in which they also killed six Syrians. The UN Security Council, I think they're still discussing this. They had an urgent meeting regarding this attack. And they will probably have an announcement sometime soon. In case you haven't watched my previous video that I posted earlier on, you can head out and watch it after this live stream. I spoke about a couple of very important developments when it comes to, number one, the US and the 18 billion arms deal that they're going to go ahead with Israel, potentially 50 F-15 jets, air-to-air missiles, more weapons for Israel, for the country that's killed 32,000 people in its genocide, that destroyed hospitals, right? What do? You arm them more. You give them more weapons. It shows how much the US, in many ways, is worse than Israel in terms of government. It's the enabler. And how much these people supporting this genocidal cult from abroad, from outside Israel, are worse than them in many ways, really. Israel relies heavily on this aid from the US. Without US support, Israel does not function. And they say that. And despite them proving that they're genocidal, that they are careless when it comes to civilians, that they deliberately assassinate people, execute them, torture them, rape them, innocent children, infants, babies, women, they still get support from the biggest superpower in the world. So I spoke about that, about the Eilat attack from the Iraqi resistance as well, that hit a SAR 6 Israeli corvette, one of the most advanced in the Navy fleet in the Israeli army. And I also spoke about the Israeli Prime Minister Office's release about them sending now a delegation to continue the negotiations after they put it on hold for a while. And Gallant's statement that having control over Gaza is not possible from a security priorities perspective. And I assumed that these two are linked. Obviously, I might be wrong, but there could potentially be a link to this arms deal and Israel agreeing potentially to some sort of a ceasefire, because the US started to show that they're not gonna unconditionally, indefinitely veto everything that comes out against Israel. There could be a link there. They could be taking a step back, perhaps. But again, in terms of the deal itself, it just highlights how the US administration is worse than Israel as the enabler, as the country providing everything, really, everything that Israel needs in terms of military support, diplomacy, every single thing. And again, it highlights the hypocrisy and double standards and fake values that Western powers claim to promote, such as freedom, human rights, equality, and all of these things. Which leads me to what I wanted to speak about. So obviously, if you've watched the video, you can obviously comment, ask questions after I finish about tonight's topic. If you don't, you can go ahead and watch it after this live stream. But I primarily wanted to analyze what happened in Syria and the potential Iranian response. So Israel, one day after they got attacked and hit with this Sa'ar 6 from Iraq, because they know that they're aligned with Iran, obviously, so they blame everything on Iran. They killed this person. The difference in this assassination, it's nothing new that Israel has targeted assassinations and with impunity, again, from the international community, no condemnation, right? Attacking a consulate. Similar to an embassy, although not exactly the same when it comes to a legal position, really, because many embassies across the world are considered foreign soil and they're protected under the Geneva Convention. A consulate is a little bit different, and bear in mind, an embassy could have this position legally in certain parts of the world, but not in all parts of the world. However, it doesn't take away anything from the level of crime. It's a blatant crime. Israel is an aggressor. Israel is a terrorist state. You know, these people talk about terrorism constantly. They are the terrorists. They're the grandmother, grandfather, and great-grandfather of terrorism. And the movements that they label as terrorism, that's for them. That's the typical deflection. Just a reminder, not that many people know that already, especially people who are listening to me. But it's just important to reiterate and highlight these things, really. However, I wanted to share with you a couple of things that were reported in the Israeli media in Hebrew, particularly in Ma'ariv. There was an article published called, "Should Israel be worried after the assassination of the senior Iranian?" Quote, "They want to go over it in silence." And then I will reach what the Iranian leadership said, because from an Iranian perspective, who responds and how they respond are very important in terms of anticipation for what's about to come. However, this article in Ma'ariv, they spoke with Professor Ametzia Bar'am. He's a senior researcher in Middle East affairs. And he spoke with Ma'ariv and commented on the assassination, on the meaning of assassination behind the action against Muhammad Riza Zahidi, who's a senior member of the Quds Force and the Revolutionary Guards Corps. It's part of it, obviously, external operations. For those of you who don't know, Al-Quds Force is the overseas part of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. They are in charge of movements, and they are in charge of coordination with resistance movements in the region. Iran will try to take revenge on Israel. It is not certain that it will do so immediately. Okay. Then they obviously said about the attack on Eilat and how this assassination came one day after, because Israel always links these operations with Iran directly. And they also spoke about the level of this person, his position in Al-Quds Force, the fact that he's a senior guy. According to the words of Professor Bar'am, who they spoke with, who's a senior researcher, he said that the assassination is the Israeli response to the shooting of the UAVs at the naval base in Eilat the day before, confirming what many people speculated. Quote, "The shooting of the UAVs is the immediate context for the assassination of General Zahidi, since he was responsible for supplying the ammunition to the general, the pro-Iranian militias, among them Hezbollah in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Jordan." They continued, "The attack that is attributed to Israel definitely indicates a step up in the fighting, the fact that it's a consulate. And in particular, they quoted afterwards, in the attack on the Iranian diplomatic building in Damascus, we killed 8 Iranians, all of whom are connected to assisting in the transfer of weapons from Iran to Hezbollah. They were headed by Zahidi, who is considered the lieutenant of the Quds force, the number 2 of the force, that's according to them, to Israel, and his rank is equivalent to the rank of lieutenant colonel in the IDF. In his last position, Zahidi was responsible for the activities of the pro-Iranian groups, provided them with weapons and ammunition, commanded them, and gave them instructions on behalf of the Iranian headquarters in Tehran. The Iranians who were killed with him were officers in the Revolutionary Guards who served under him, and they also took care of transferring ammunition and military equipment from Iran through Iraq and Syria, and from Syria to Lebanon. As mentioned, the 8 Iranian officers were responsible for all the activities of the pro-Iranian militia organizations in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Jordan against Israel, explains the professor. Before I continue, that's again Israel's claim. Syria said 6 Syrians were killed. Israel is talking about 8 in total, and they're saying all of them are Iranian. Not according to what Syria is publishing. They said he was killed alongside 6. There could potentially be another figure, but they said those 6 were Syrians, not Iranians like Israel is selling, potentially to lower the potential reaction internationally that we didn't target Syrians, we only targeted Iran, and we share the same views with you about Iran, that it's a dangerous country, and all of these things. He continued, Zahidi was in the group of 10 most senior officers of the Revolutionary Guards who manage all of Iran's security policy. He was amongst the most important people in the Iranian security system, and this is a very hard blow to the Iranian regime. However, the attack is a sharp and important message to the Iranians so that they understand that Israel's patience with the attacks of the pro-Iranian militias is running out. The purpose of the hints being sent is to weaken the battles, to lower the level of combat, and to deter the pro-Iranian militias controlled by Iran throughout the Middle East, says the professor, referring to the attack by the pro-Iraqi militias on the naval base of Eilat the day before Zahidi's assassination. The same attack that Israel claims to be on a military structure. However, we have had confirmed reports that it directly hit a Sa'ar 6 corvette that belongs to the Israeli Navy, one of the most advanced in the Israeli Navy fleet, and it's very expensive to say the least. He continued, by virtue of his position as the unofficial commander of all pro-Iranian militias throughout the Middle East, it is likely that without his order to send the attack, the UAV would not have set off to Israel. Naturally, it makes sense that the reaction that came immediately after the launch of the UAV would be its elimination. Fortunately, by a miracle, in hitting the naval base, they were not accurate enough and failed to hit the ships. Again, that's according to him. Lies. It did hit the ship. But if they had succeeded, there would have been tens of millions of dollars in cumulative damage. Beyond that, this shows if the activities of the militias are not limited, they will try to reach anywhere in Israel from any border. I believe that the elimination of Zahidi will deter the militias from carrying out similar actions from now on, he estimates. I'll stop here for a second and just comment about what he said, right? Deter them from targeting more sensitive places in Israel, particularly that phrase. They already targeted most sensitive places in Israel. We've had attacks on Dimona. We've had attacks on the chemical refinery in Haifa. We've had the attacks on the Haifa port, the Haifa airport, the Tel Aviv Ben Gurion airport. You've had an attack on the Ashdod port. You had an attack on the Karish gas field next to Lebanon. All of these are some of the most sensitive areas in Israel. And they also attacked other places that they did not disclose, and they did not disclose how they attacked them as well, to potentially keep a level of secrecy and potentially save themselves from repercussions, or not to reveal how they did it so that they do not show any vulnerability, and so that the places that they attacked from do not get bombed back. Although usually if they use a place to attack from, they don't usually use it again, because these people, obviously you have navigation, sat navs, they're monitored, satellites and everything. They will most likely know where the attacks were carried out from. And they finished up that article saying, regarding the Iranian response to the assassination, Bar'am says that, quote, I believe that they will try to take revenge on Israel and will not go over the assassination in silence. It is not certain that revenge will be carried out in the near future. According to past events, it is appropriate for Iranians to carry out an exhibition explosions at a Jewish facility in the world, such as a synagogue or an Israeli embassy. Again, he wants to link anti-Semitism with this, which is complete nonsense, really, when it comes to Iran, to kind of link them with anti-Semitism. Facilities, Israeli diplomats, or major Jewish centers in the world, these are the types of targets they have pursued in the past. Again, a bit of propaganda with the estimates. However, from the core understanding, from what he said, they're obviously going to respond. Now, going back to what Iran said, right? We've had responses from the Iranian president, the Iranian foreign minister, and the Iranian supreme leader. When you have three responses saying we're going to retaliate, some retaliation is going to come, and that retaliation is not going to be nice for Israel, obviously. The supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, said that Israel would be punished for the attack, while President Ibrahim Raisi said that it will not go unanswered. This was reported by IRNA, the state news agency. We also had figures in Iran saying that America is responsible. Particularly Abdullahian, the foreign minister, he said that the United States is responsible. Him linking the US because he knows the bigger picture. He knows Israel does not operate without the US. He knows Israel is a US front. Regardless of who's controlling the US, that's a different argument. The lobby, the elite, the people behind, that's a different story. But from their perspective, without the United States assistance and full support, Israel wouldn't carry out this attack. Israel is still trying to limit the damage, at least in terms of its image across the world, because many of the Arab and Muslim countries have outright condemned the attack. Obviously not Western countries, because why should they condemn it? Right? It's Iran. It doesn't matter, right? So there's a level of hypocrisy and double standards. Imagine any country attacking any other country's consulate or embassy and targeting and killing people, regardless of whether they're from the military or non-military. Their militaries are full of, in every embassy across the world, intelligence officers, secret intelligence agencies, they're everywhere. Is that a legit target? Are you legitimizing that? If you don't, then condemn this. And if you do, then shut up. But they don't. They constantly reveal their hypocrisy again and again. We've been living in a massive festival of hypocrisy full of clowns and circus for the past 6 months. Well, hell, for the past century maybe, but it's just being highlighted since the genocide in Gaza. Obviously, we've known this before, but now, thankfully, it's being revealed to more and more people. Hagari, the Israeli IDF spokesperson, he tried to play it down a little bit. He said, according to our intelligence, there is no consulate and this is no embassy. I repeat, this is no consulate, there's no embassy. This is a military building of Quds forces disguised as civilian building in Damascus. Again, look at the arrogance. They will label it as whatever they want. Similarly to how they labeled Shifa Hospital as a Hamas base, a terror base. Imagine how rude. And they expect people to buy it. I'm sorry, but hardly anyone buys this nonsense. But he's trying to, right, portray an image of, oh no, we don't act diplomatic missions, we respect international law. The only thing that changed since this genocide case, by the way, in the ICJ, is that Israel continued the genocide and continued all of their barbaric terrorist crimes, but now they're only saying that they are in accordance to international law. Similar to what they're doing now. It's not a consul, it's not an embassy, and it's a Quds force. So we can attack it. So can anyone attack US missions abroad? Can anyone attack European consulates across the world? Is that okay? Or will you condemn them? Will you stop barking and condemning? That's when it comes to US politicians and Western policymakers as well. Shows you the level of hypocrisy and double standards. When it comes to the response itself, it will most likely be carried out by Iran's allies, just for Iran to protect itself. Similarly, how to Israel, when it comes to Israel, they do not admit, and even when they report these attacks in Israeli media, they will say foreign reports attributed to Israel. Foreign reports attribute this attack to Israel that happened in Damascus. Why? Because they don't want repercussions. Similarly with Iran, they don't want direct repercussions. It will happen through resistance movements, right? And Iran as a country will stay out of the picture, although obviously the US and Israel, and they will constantly tell you Iranian proxies and this proxy and that. Well, Israel's a US proxy. We can say that too. Simple. Right? Aren't they a front for neo-colonial powers? They are. And the level of it might be different this time. When it comes to the impact itself, it could be the level, it could be the target itself, and how many places are attacked in each moment, because previously we've had instances following recent assassinations in Lebanon and Syria where we had coordinated attacks both from Iraq and Yemen and Lebanon on Israel. So that could be the case when it comes to their retaliation, and obviously the days will reveal how, where, and the scale of it, but it will not pass, especially seeing as all of the senior leadership in Iran, including the supreme leader, have already said that there will be a response. And again, when they put the US in the picture, you could also potentially have US bases and US interests in US locations under attack from Iran. And this was the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about in this live stream. And now I'll open the space up for all of you. If you have any questions or comments, I'll try and obviously address as much as possible. Let me head back to the beginning of the feed. And obviously welcome for everyone greeting and joining. And thank you for everyone joining us. As and when, if you're new to the live stream, it's primarily for the viewers, subscribers, and members, just to open the space up for you, give you a bit of a platform to speak, talk, share some of your views, and obviously answer any questions that you may have. Chocolate pudding, thank you for your super. I think Iran said it would carry out the response itself. They haven't said that they would carry out the response themselves, but they did say there will be a response. And when they say there will be a response, that means there will be a response. Directly, indirectly, I don't think they would limit themselves to their own, because don't forget that even if they don't carry it out directly, it doesn't mean the attack won't be significant. Like they gave the US a big headache with the bases in Iraq and Jordan and Syria, right? Ashkir or Moxie, do you think Iran will let strike Israel directly, or will they just talk and hit a Mossad site in a third country, like they did in Erbil, for example, previously? That's definitely an option, because don't undermine these places and these operations. Israel has overseas operations in many countries that are very sensitive, and these locations are in charge of overseas operations. Similarly to how Israel claims that this embassy or consulate is in charge of delivering aid and coordinating between the resistance movements, Iran would say the same. These Mossad hubs or areas are primarily done to attack us or our allies. So they wouldn't want to, they obviously would want to target them. Okay, let's go to see if you have any other questions. ABCD, expect more darkness before the dawn. That's true. Kate, how did Israel know there was a Syrian Iranian consulate? Was there a traitor? Look, espionage, obviously, and that happens by so many means. Technology, it's very, like, you don't need people many times, really. All it takes is a couple of technology hacks, whatever either phones or devices they use. Obviously, there are traitors too, but it could be so many things. Similarly to the assassination of Al-Aruri and other leaderships in Syria and Lebanon, it could be so many things, but lots of it is obviously, look at how much sophistication they have when it comes to espionage and hacking Israel. So we wouldn't be surprised if it was something to do with technology. And again, there could be obviously traitors, but they would need to have a successful targeted assassination. They would need to have live information valid by the hour to carry out the attack and execute it, and for them to reach their target and aim. And that requires very precise information. Bing swings, they can target the consulate accurately and they say, oops, it was an accident, when they target the aid workers. Yeah, oops, there was an accident. Although, you know that oops, it was an accident with the aid workers. Have you seen the vehicle? Have any of you seen the vehicle? It says, what's the company called? Central Kitchen Aid, right? Massive, firstly, clear colored car. Secondly, a massive logo on the top of the car. That's a sign for the Air Force, by the way, that we're an aid company. Every single sign possible as requested by Israel was there. Yet a missile hit it from the top. What's the excuse? It's a deliberate attack. Come on, who are they trying to fool here? Only ignorant people, really. I mean, you have to be very ignorant to believe what they're saying. Oh, it was an accident. Yeah, it was an accident, killing 33,000 people. You're prone to accidents. It's worrying how prone you are to accidents if all of these are accidents. But yeah, they're obnoxious, abhorrent. Lewis Adams saying regional war is already unavoidable. Whether it escalates further depends all on the USA. I agree to a high extent with that, particularly with the part that says it depends on the US. Why? Because Russia and China, they show more responsibility than the US. By the way, if you listen to the Chinese leaders and the Russian leaders and the Iranians and the Arab leaders, some of them, they have more common sense than Israel, than the US, and than European leaders, despite all of the propaganda and everything. But let's say the big countries, Russia and China, they're more level headed. These people seriously don't want escalation, and they just want everything to move smoothly for everyone to have their interest. But again, not for the US to act as an international bully, the position that they've been used to and accustomed to since World War II. They still think that they're in the 50s. Dude, it's not the 50s anymore. Things are changing, countries are changing, even people who you consider to be your puppets and slaves are changing. And it doesn't seem like there are rational people and reasonable people at the top of US policymaking, similarly to how there are no rational, sensible people within Israel, politically or militarily. The only people who speak in both of these countries are people who no longer serve. Either they're more at liberty to speak, or they're out of their job for a reason, right? That they don't comply with this genocidal my way or the highway approach. But it could go there. It could go there. I mean, what the US has been doing in its shameful support for this genocide by enabling it, it is pushing to reach there, really. And one thing I wanted to note here, right, just out of this question, isn't it bizarre how Western countries that talk about equality and democracy, they don't want equality and democracy in Palestine? Isn't that a little bit bizarre? Why is that the case? Why do you not want equality in Palestine? What's your problem with that? What's so troublesome for you? What's bothering you so much in having a one-state solution, the solution that we promote, I, myself, and many others as well, of a one-state solution between the Jordan River to the sea, where the Palestinians and Israelis would receive equal rights? What's the problem with that? Don't people ask this question? Because it's very simple. I mean, it's very straightforward. Hell, it doesn't take up a lot of money. A fraction of what you spend annually on your military, if you're the US or Israel, especially if you distribute it across 10 years or whatever, there's more than enough space. Zionism has proved that it's a violent supremacist ideology that does not belong to the human race altogether. It does belong to a satanic cult that's leading it now in Israel and internationally. There are people like that. There is pure evil in the world, so let's not be delusional. But just talking about it like from a, rational perspective, really, just to debate, like, what's the problem? It's just equality, right? Equality and rights. One man, one vote. Everyone can vote freely. Everyone can travel freely. Non-Jews can immigrate to Israel. What's the problem with that? Such a big deal. You implement it in your own countries, right? Can't people from many nations, although they make their life hell before they come, immigrate to European countries and the US? Why is it Israel that should always and must always remain a supremacist, violent state? Why is it? Tell me. I wonder what their answer is. What would it be? Is it the only Jewish state in the world? Oh, come on. As if anyone has a problem with anyone having a nation state or whatever. Put aside my personal comments on a state having a religion, right? As if states pray or whatever. People can have religions, not the state. The state should serve its people, right? The people living in it. And the people living in it, they will follow many faiths, not just one faith. But and you have the same people who are so pro secularism, right? And yet, when it comes to Israel, no, it's okay to have a radical, violent, religious state. It's okay. It's fine. You can talk. But it's slowly but surely, you know, people are waking up to this, really. Gibran Khader. Will Russia finally provide real air defense to Syria so this won't happen every few months? Valid question. And the harsh truth is there's also an understanding between Russia and Israel. So if Russia didn't want Israel to attack in Syria completely altogether at all, they have the option not to. But they clearly have an understanding with Israel when it comes to attacking certain locations, when it comes to obviously Iran and Syria and Hezbollah and weapons and stuff. And another thing that's important to note here, that there are ways to avoid air defense system. Like if you have an attack, a targeted attack in UAVs, like the attacks that we had recently, they're UAV attacks, similar to ones in the Dahia in Beirut. If it's low altitude and the air defense systems detect stuff that are, I don't know, 100 meters and above or 2 hour a mile, whatever it is, because they vary. What are they going to do with low altitude, for example? You need to provide an answer for that. It's the same problem Israel's facing with Hezbollah's missiles. Most of them land. Hezbollah landed since the 8th of October, over 4,000 missiles on Israel. Most of them landed. Why? Short range, low altitude. And they don't have a direct answer for that. And if a certain country has air defense systems that are very advanced, that they don't provide answers to all of the questions. Like Israel, they have 3 to 4 different air defense systems. Kela David, Kipat Barzel, the Iron Dome, and they have another one, I forgot the name, 1 or 2 more. But even with all of them, and some of them like Kela David, a David Sling, it has $1 million rocket. Like every time they intercept anything, that's $1 million gone. So even with those, and that's usually for ballistic missiles, but even with all of this, they couldn't intercept, for example, the attack that happened 2 days ago. Although they have different air defense systems for a wide range of missiles and UAVs and air attacks. So it's important to also note that. Okay, let's see if you have any more questions here. Oh, Kirk, thank you so much for your super and the fivers. Bless you, brother, for your intelligence and humanity. Thank you so much for your support. Kirk's very active and supportive, very vocal, and as many of you are as well. The Fivers also asked the question, thoughts Sunni Shia sectarianism hurts the cause? Well, firstly, my thoughts on Sunni Shia, it's a made-up division that was primarily there for political reasons. The Sunni Shia divide was on the political rule. Who controls the Muslim world? Then it started to take the religious shape, and many people bought into that. If it comes to the sectarianism part, it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a person who is very set and is a sectarian person, who believes my interpretation is correct and the other interpretation is wrong, therefore their worldview will depend on that and be shaped by this very small, tiny worldview, then is that a person who you expect anything from anyway? That's the question. So you'll have people, for example, who will say, oh, Sunni countries are not doing that, therefore the Shia are supporting. Although Hamas is not Shia, for example. Vice versa, the others will tell you, oh, they're just playing and they're acting with Israel, although they haven't done anything, right? However, lots of it is made up, and that's the thing that many people should be aware about, that it's made up, that this whole argument has been pushed primarily in the past 2 decades by the US. US policymakers, think tanks in the late 90s, one of them said the 21st century will be the century of the Sunni-Shia war. Forgot the name. Big thinker in the US. Why would he do that? Obviously, there's something to establish it on. There is obviously some sort of sectarianism somewhere, like it exists with any, which is rubbish, really. I hate sectarianism and racism, all of these things. You know, you take people on based on values and how you deal with them as human beings. And if people have a religious view or a certain faith, I'd respect that, so long as they're respecting me. You know, there's no harm in debating or what have you. But the friction, the fighting thing, the pointless, harmful fighting, who does it serve? And extend that to Western countries. Look, here in the UK, right? Why does the government promote discrimination and racism? Why do they speak badly about certain communities? To keep the population divided, so that you don't have social cohesion. Because when you do have social cohesion, people start thinking about what's important, not what's not important. Like, oh, what do you believe when it comes to that? Okay, cool, you believe something, I believe something. And, you know, if you want to debate, I'll debate with you. I'll tell you why I believe this, you tell me why I believe that. If we want to agree on something, fine. If not, okay. No one can force anyone to believe anything. But who benefits from sectarianism and from pushing for sectarian fights between people within different communities, different ethnicities, not just the Sunni Shia, but in general? The people in power. Why? So that they can keep the people busy with each other, so that the people can scapegoat each other, blame each other for mistakes that those in power make, and those in power can continue with their policies, with whatever they need, and the people can shut up and they can get on with their job. And when it comes to, I mean, I'm not seeing something significant, to be fair. I mean, we've improved. It was you still have toxic voices from within each sect, really, and other religions as well, poisonous, toxic people. But the situation has definitely improved in the past 20 years. Like, the US worked really hard and they had collaborators after they occupied Iraq to explode this sectarian war. Although before they occupied Iraq and committed a mass genocide, like we're talking about Israel committing a genocide, right, killing 33,000 people. The US and other global powers, they committed far larger genocides. But now it's decreasing. They obviously had people working for them to expand the sectarianism, to expand these problems and these divisions, right? So now it doesn't look like they're succeeding, because really and truly the Palestinian cause is very obvious and it's clear as daylight. When it comes to Palestine, you're talking about a case of human rights, really. Number one, it's a political issue. It's a case for equality, a call for freedom, a call for liberty, to end occupation, to end supremacy. And most of the world is united on that. Yet still they will try and find divisions. They will try and tell you, oh no, there's the Judeo-Christian values that the Muslims are attacking. Then you'll have the people telling you internal Muslim problems. And then you'll have the Zionist Jews telling you that the non-Zionist Jews are anti-Semites and self-hating Jews. Dude, it's clear as daylight. It's right versus wrong, really. Simple. It's either universal human rights or selective human rights. What do you want? They're pushing for selective human rights. Israelis have human rights, the Palestinians don't. Israel has a right to defend itself, the Palestinians don't. What Israel does is to protect itself and measures, right? And what the Palestinians do is terrorism. And who puts these parameters? The biggest criminals in the world. The ones who killed millions, yet roam around freely with impunity and protected. The Badger stop talking about the Mahdi's humiliation of Arab nations has a purpose, and it's because everyone expects a savior. The responsibility is yours. The responsibility is yours. Yes. And many of these ideologies are there to promote lack of action, really. People waiting for something to happen, or people when you know what you need to do, really. Delil Sandro, right, Mahmoud, they put a rocket right through the World Kitchen logo at the top of the car. 2 cars were blown up too. I mean, how sick does it have to get? Yes, exactly. So clearly you've seen those images. It's clear as daylight. The logo's up there and they do it deliberately. But hey, the 130 journalists they assassinated directly and executed, they also wore vests and saying press, had cameras with them. And they'll spin it whichever way they want. Let's see if we have any more comments before we wrap up, or questions. Jassim Aqil, my brother has a video online that the Iraqi resistance hit a warehouse in Eilat, nearly missed the Corvette side. Did you see the video? They hit the corvettes are. Mind you, some other videos are published as and when too. I'm not sure if that was the most recent video that we spoke about, but the Iraqi resistance, they posted a video of them launching the attack. So they wouldn't post the video of them targeting the place, the target itself, unless the weapons they use, they had a camera on them. And they do have, some of them have that type of weapon. Hezbollah introduced it very recently. You can see from the footage that it's going through a certain target, and then it finishes when it explodes. Bonsdad, thank you so much for your super thanks. And I think that was the final. Bonsdad also asked, how do Houthis get supplies? Yeah, and we'll finish it there with your question. How do Houthis get supplies to live? Well, they have their own manufacturing. That's number one. And they deal with other countries too. You obviously need to bear in mind that there's two governments in Yemen. One internationally recognized and is more internationally compliant. But the other one is obviously Ansarullah. And when it comes to Ansarullah, clearly it's these movements that are not bound by this facade that we see in front of us, called what's called international community. There is no international community. There's US hegemony and enforcement of what the US wants. Europe follows suit, other countries follow suit if the US orders. But they obviously have their own supplies, their own production, and they have dealings with other countries too. And that looked like your final kind of main question. So let's wrap it up there. Again, thank you so much for everyone who's joined me. I apologize if I missed some of your comments. Try to focus on the main things, really. I will hopefully be with you tomorrow. If I will be with you tomorrow, I will try and post a link during the day. If I don't post a link during the day, I will notify you on the community tab. And then I'll post a link in the evening. That's apart from the regular video. If I want to have a live stream, you'll obviously know. And that's it for tonight then. Enjoy your evening, everyone. Thank you so much again for all of your contributions. And I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.